Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. For today's episode, we got some special news as Juan Soto is apparently available to be traded at this point. John Heyman had a tweet recently out earlier today, maybe like 4 hours ago, I want to say. Basically, the Washington Nationals offered him a 15-year, $440 million deal. Soto has declined. He has a couple years extra left on control, but he is available. And if this doesn't really make sense, you're like, why the Nationals trade their best player in Juan Soto? It is because the Nationals are nowhere being able to contend. They're not really close. He has a couple extra years left of control. This is the highest point they're going to be able to trade him for. So we actually did this. We talked about Soto a couple days ago in a live stream. I want to say maybe a week or two ago, and we were talking about why the Nationals should trade him, and we actually had a little discussion on it. I have always thought that it makes a lot of sense for the Nationals to trade him. Not that Juan Soto is not a generational talent, but that they already won the World Series with him when they had him in his prime, and he's going to walk in a couple years. If you wait and you do it, half year left on his deal, and you wait to trade him till then, not going to get nearly as much value. So it makes a lot of sense for the Nationals to trade him. So he is truly available, apparently. Now, big question here for the Padres. Are they going to be able to actually trade for a guy like Juan Soto? We know that a lot of guys in the Padres farm system are getting close to, coming into the league, or you have, a guy like CJ Abrams, who's a top 10 prospect who is now playing in the MLB. So Isaac, I got to ask you, do you think there's actually a chance that the Padres go and try to, first off, go and try to get Juan Soto, and can they actually pull it off?
If you don't think the Padres are going to go after Juan Soto, if you don't think AJ Preller is going to go after Juan Soto, you haven't been a Padres fan for long enough, because this guy loves taking risks. He loves making these kind of trades. This is right in AJ Preller's wheelhouse in terms of maybe he's not going to be able to pull it off, but he's at least going to try. You got to remember, it wasn't that long ago that AJ Preller had Juan Soto on his radar. He was right there to actually getting him in a Padres uniform. If Juan Soto would have waited a day later, he was offered $1 million. He would have been offered $1 million more by the Padres. More likely than not, he is a San Diego Padre. Now, unfortunately, he did not wait that extra day. Therefore, he is on the Nationals, and he's won a World Series, and he's quite frankly turned into the Ted Williams of our generation. He is an amazing, amazing player. You look at it consistently, over a 400 on base percentage. This, for him, in terms of OPS, is a bad year, and he's almost at a 900 OPS. He is at like a 160 OPS plus, something like that. He's been everything that any team in baseball could ask for. Now, you asked, can the Padres pull it off? I can't really think of a team that's more equipped to be able to pull this off. If you look at everything other than, okay, the Padres might have to push into the luxury tax or whatever, other financial reasons. If you just look at it from a prospect's perspective or just a player's perspective, maybe the Yankees have enough to get it done, but other than the Yankees, I think the Padres are right there in terms of what they could do. Now, I did read that article from John Heyman, and it was talking about the Yankees and the Mets as two potential destinations for Juan Soto, though he also stated that, and I take a lot of things John Heyman says with a grain of salt, but he's literally in New York, so I'll take this, I think he'd be credible in this aspect in terms of saying the Mets might not be willing to give up some of their prospects. And the Yankees might also be hesitant, also because Peraza, Volpe, and Dominguez are supposed to be pretty good. So I don't know another team that's willing to get rid of prospects. Not only another team, but another manager that's willing to get rid of prospects, like the way AJ Preller will. Now you can talk about the Dodgers, of course, they get rid of all their prospects and I'll say buy their team, but the Padres are super equipped, man. They got CJ Abrams, Robert Hassel, Jackson Merrill, Luis Campusano, Ha-seong Kim, Trent Grisham, like James Wood, so many prospects and pieces that will quite frankly have to be on the trade block if you get Juan Soto. I think there's going to be people who try and say, oh, you don't give up Abrams, don't give up Hassel, or don't give up Gore or something like that. If you're going to get Juan Soto, you're going to have to give up probably two of those guys. Most likely, because I can't think of another player that's hit the market like this, in the middle of a season, 2.5 years of control, this age, like maybe A-Rod, but other than that, this is going to blow up the trade market, which is, it could be good for the Padres. Maybe other players will be cheap. But AJ Preller's not going to have his sights set on another player that's not Juan Soto. If Juan Soto's on the market, you bet money that he's going to do everything he can to get Juan Soto. But it is such an exciting that's going to it's got to be one of the most exciting trade deadlines ever. I mean, when a player like this hits the market, it is super rare, and it's going to be a really fun trade deadline to see what the Padres are able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And Isaac, you mentioned a little bit, like just real briefly, that if Juan Soto would have waited an extra day, he could have got paid an additional $1 million being signed out of the DR for the Padres. So we've brought the story up a couple times on the show. So for any guys that have been listening for a while here, basically what happened is Juan Soto was offered, I think it was $1 million or a couple $1 million by the Nationals, and he got the offer. His coach at the time, coach kind of mentor person for him, said, "Hey, take this deal, sign it. You should sign it right now. Go sign the deal." So he goes and does that. Next day, Padres come in and offer a deal that was $1 million more than the previous contract. He likely would have took the Padres deal if he would have waited a day longer. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Now we're talking about going and getting Juan Soto. So, Isaac, you bring up all of these guys. You bring up Abrams, Hassel, Merrill, right? Campusano, Grisham, ha-seong Kim. And we bring up Grisham, ha-seong Kim. Yeah, maybe they're not the best players, but they're MLB, level players. They're also guys that maybe the Nationals aren't trying to win right now, but they're also trade pieces for the future. Ha-seong Kim is a very marketable player internationally, so he is a guy that could be very, very valuable for the Nationals. But this is a trade package where if you're going to base it, like you're going to have to give up a lot to go get him. And the truth is, I'm very against trying to trade all your prospects. We have been as big as CJ Abrams supporters as anyone, as big as Mackenzie Gore supporters as anyone, maybe even put James Wood on that list as well. We like Jackson Merrill. We like, Robert Hassel, guys like that. But there are some other shows. I will give them credit. They are way higher on those guys than we are. But those three guys we have been super high on. You move them for a guy like Juan Soto. And I understand if you're a little bit hesitant. I understand if you're not sure about it. But I think we have to look at what the ramifications of the Padres acquiring Juan Soto would look like. This is a guy that if you get him, first off, if you get him, you are re-signing him. You don't go and get him to not re-sign him. That doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of my first little statement of him. But the second point, Juan Soto currently has been playing in the league for almost 5 years. He has a 968 OPS. He's 23 years old. He has 2 years left of control. He is, like you said, the Ted Williams of our generation. He is maybe the most elite bat in the entire league. He is that level guy. He isn't a very good defender, so you can knock him on that, but he is one of the best offensive pieces in the entire league. He is also an extremely flashy player. He is also a very exciting player, and we don't hear too much about it just because he plays on the Washington Nationals and they're not very good. If you guys have seen the last couple of days of what Juan Soto's been up to, there have been some hilarious things. He had the little debacle with Will Smith. Absolutely hilarious. He gets walked in the ninth inning, kind of does his thing, and looks at Will Smith and does a little crying face. He's hilarious. He is an awesome guy, very charismatic. I will also mention he has the best smile in the entire sport. I don't think anyone brings that up. He has a fantastic smile. If you have Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis for the next 10 plus years, this is the move that the Padres need to make to become that franchise, to become one of those top-end franchises. Are they that right now? No. Have they taken significant strides by getting a Manny Machado, a Fernando Tatis, even a Joe Musgrove, right? Local kid. All those guys. Yes, they've taken significant strides. You pair a Juan Soto with a Fernando Tatis, and all of a sudden, you have the two building blocks of your franchise. Right now, there's Mr. Padre, Tony Gwynn. Fernando Tatis and Juan Soto, those two guys, if they run into a World Series in the next 10 years together, that is massive for this franchise. So from a business standpoint, it makes a ton of sense. Other thing that gets brought up a lot with the Padres is that they're a small market team. They have not been a small market team for the past few years. I do not expect them, even if they were to make a Juan Soto trade, to go into luxury tax. But if they get Juan Soto and they have Soto, Tatis, and Machado basically at $100 million a year, they will go into luxury tax year after year after year. Why? Because it's worth it. So the biggest thing for me is this makes a ton of sense from an ownership standpoint, and you have to trade a lot of stuff to do it, but you're going to be willing to. If you're the Padres and you go and you make this move, it does make it a little bit more difficult to go and get a Joe Musgrove. However, we're not accounting for how how much future money this is going to reel in for this organization if you have those two guys. So guess what? If you take a couple losses for a couple years early on in their deals, I still say you go and do it. You dip into the luxury tax and you build around these two players. I mean, let's not forget Manny Machado either. Manny Machado is a spectacular player as well. So you build around those three players. There isn't a trio in the league that is better than those three from a lineup standpoint. That is as good as it gets. You go and you do that. Yeah, you have a couple questions. You're trading a lot of the farm. Then what do? You go and you dip into the international market. Now, if you guys have followed the show for a while, you know I'm not the biggest. I'm not the biggest AJ Preller fan. But what I will give him a lot of credit for is he has done a really good job of acquiring talent overseas. He goes and he gets in guys. Even if he doesn't land guys, he's always a finalist for guess who? Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani. And if he doesn't get guys, he goes and he tries to make a trade. Fernando Tatis. And he is consistently in on the top talent around the world. You go and you dip in on that kind of talent and you try to rebuild your farm that way. The Padres are going to go way over the luxury tax next year if they were to do this deal. I think it makes a ton of sense. I think it is absolutely worth the risk. I don't think it's a going all in for this year, but I think it's a going all in with two pillars of your franchise in Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis. So I absolutely love the idea of adding him. But before we take off, Isaac, what are kind of what are you kind of thinking in terms of a trade for this, and also what do you think about some of the stuff I'm saying in terms of the luxury tax, the international market, and ways that the Padres can kind of rebuild their farm and also just keep their team as a top competitor for years to come?
Yeah, if you're going to give, credit to AJ Preller in any sort of aspect of team building, it's got to be through the farm. He's very good at building the farm. The Padres have been one of the top farm systems, for as long as I can remember. And even though they got rid of a lot of the guys in 2020, there's still a really solid farm system with guys who just graduated like Abrams and Gore, with guys that are still coming up like ha-seong, Merrill, James Wood, Robert Gasser, a lot of guys that AJ Preller was able to get. And this upcoming draft is one of the best one of the best drafts coming up, which AJ Preller is going to be able to get himself a really good player. So I think you're definitely going to be able to rebuild the farm. That is probably one of the least of my worries. The luxury tax, I mean, you're going to be one of the most profitable organizations in the sport. And like you said, Matt, the Padres haven't been a small market team since 2019, 2020, something like that. Maybe even since they signed Eric Hosmer, they have not been a small market team. They have been willing to make big splashes, and they've shown that consistently by signing. And Eric Hosmer is not good, but by signing guys like Eric Hosmer, Manny Machado, extending Fernando Tatis, being in contract extension talks with Joe Musgrove for a pretty solid deal. They've shown willingness to be able to pay some of these guys. So they're not really a small market team anymore. I mean, maybe just because they're in San Diego, but other than that, I mean, they spend a lot of money. I don't know what it would take to get him, but I do think the Padres are the most suited to be able to do so. Now, the package is going to have to be squared around one of these two guys, CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore. Pick your poison, I would say, for any of you fans that do want him. Pick your poison. Which one do you want more? I don't know which one I want more. They're both amazing prospects. They're both number one in our prospect rankings at one point. They were both top 10 prospects at one point. I mean, yeah, CJ Abrams just graduated, but remember, he probably has like under or maybe a little over 500 minor league at bats. He's still technically a prospect. Even if he graduated, I still think he should be considered a prospect because he has so little at bats in the minors. And he's actually started to come around in the major league. He's going to be an amazingly talented player. He's going to be one of the best players in baseball, hopefully, in the next few years. Bold take, but I think he's got the talent to be able to do so. But the Padres are very, very well equipped to be able to do this trade. And Juan Soto, I mean, if you plug him in with Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis, you got one of the best trios in MLB history. You got guys that are going to be consistently over a 900 OPS, and Fernando and Juan Soto. And then you got a platinum glove, one of the best third basemen to ever do it in Manny Machado. So you have a lot of marketable players. Not only that, but if you blow up the farm, let's say you just keep like, a guy like James Wood. you'll still be able to plug in James Wood in the near future, who's projected to be one of the, an amazing outfielder. And apparently to some, he's like our second best prospect. And then you still got guys like Robert Gasser, Victor Acosta, Samuel Zavala, like Harlan Suzana. You got a few guys they're very young, and it's going to take some time for them to come up, but they're also projected to be some very good players. And I'll bank on AJ Preller being able to rebuild the farm. An opportunity like getting Juan Soto does not come very often. This is like a once in a generation type trade. And Mookie Betts was traded at one point, but Mookie Betts was an older player. There've been some big name trades, but never I can't think of one recently like Juan Soto, a 23-year-old who's won a World Series, not only won a World Series, but was essentially the cornerstone of the lineup in that World Series. And provides the bat that he does, even if he sucks at defense. Don't get me wrong, he so far this year he's been absolutely horrific on defense, but who cares? He has almost a 900 OPS, and that is considered his worst year. Now, yeah, he was having a down season at the beginning, but he's starting to pick it up again. So, do you give up the farm for Juan Soto? I think the answer is going to have to be yes. And it's going to have to be yes for any team that's looking to acquire him. You're going to have to blow it up. And I know I forgot who had her on. I forgot her name, but she said that she doesn't think there's a team better equipped than the Padres to be able to do this. So, I mean, the Padres got to be one of the favorites. AJ Preller is going to be all in on him. It's great not only for your team from a lineup standpoint, but from a financial standpoint, for ownership. Being able to market Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, Joe Musgrove, and at least for the next year or two, Yu Darvish, not Blake Snell, but a few of these guys that are big time players. It's going to be very profitable for our organization. So it makes so much sense. There's not a team better equipped than the Padres, and I don't think there would be a team better than the Padres in baseball. Yeah, I mean, I'm all in, man. I'm all in. I'm one of the biggest Juan Soto fans, and getting his bat in the lineup would be, one of the highlights as a sports fan for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we just look at it, and like you're saying, like, and I want to add, like, this doesn't mean like, oh, the Padres are guaranteed to win the World Series or anything like that, but it just makes all of the sense in the world. Sorry for the motorcycle, but it makes all of the sense in the world. You're going to have to give up like 6 to 8 guys. You're going to have to give up so much. But the thing that you're not really like, that a lot of people I feel like aren't really accounting for is that, yes, you're going to give up all those guys, but what are those doors that are going to open up for having multiple mega stars? And like you said, there's not a guy like that, like Juan Soto, that becomes available. Juan Soto is a mega star. He's in a superstar. He is a mega star. He is one of the generational players right now. You brought up that Mookie Betts got traded. I forget what age Mookie Betts was traded, but let's not forget the Red Sox they also just didn't want to pay Mookie Betts. And I'm not trying to take away anything from him. He is he's an incredible player. Juan Soto is 23 years old. Juan Soto is one of I think he might be the best bat in the sport. Now, you can definitely argue that, don't get me wrong, but he is a easy 950 plus OPS guy every single year almost. And right now he's a little bit below that. I'm feeling he'll probably be close to 1,000 by the time the season's over. You want Juan Soto in your lineup, and you got to really do whatever you can to get him in the lineup if you're the Padres. If you're trying to turn into one of the top franchises in the sport, Juan Soto is the guy you go and acquire to make it happen. So for me, if I'm looking at a deal, I think that it makes a little bit more sense if you're the Padres. And keep in mind, if you're the Nationals and you're like, hey, look, we want Mackenzie Gore instead of CJ Abrams, we want James Wood included in this deal, I do think the Padres will budge. I think it makes a lot of sense. But my kind of idea for what a deal would look like is the starting price if I'm the Padres. What I'm is Abrams, Hassel, Merrill, Campy, Grisham, and Ha-seong Kim. You have two major league players in Grisham and Ha-seong Kim. Grisham has been struggling this year. Ha-seong Kim has kind of had his ups and downs. However, Ha-seong Kim has been extremely hot as of late, and is one of the best defensive middle infielders in the entire sport. Abrams, top prospect. Hassel, top prospect. Merrill, absolutely a monster since he's been in the league, and he's a first rounder. Campy, one of the better bats in AAA right now, in all of AAA right now. That's a good starting price. Now you may need to toss in a Robert Gasser. You may need to, bring in James Wood instead of Campy or whatever that is. But you're talking about 3 guys that are top 50 prospects, and you're talking about elite, like, top end prospects right here. You're talking about a couple really good players. Will it maybe cost more? Yeah. But let's also think about what other teams are going to be able to offer. And also keep in mind, the Pirates aren't going to go, oh, we're going to trade a farm system for this guy. It doesn't make any sense at all. These are teams that are contending that are going to actually be looking to get Juan Soto. So if we're looking at those teams, like you said, the Padres are absolutely the most well equipped to make this move. There's a ton of pressure on them this deadline to make it work. And if you're going to go and take that swing, if you're going to go and take that swing with any player, Juan Soto is that guy to go do it with. So I can't guarantee that they're going to land him, but they are 1,000,000% going to be in on Juan Soto, and they're going to try to get him in the end. And I think AJ Preller, we already know that he's had a pass with this guy. We know that he's wanted him. It makes all the sense in the world that AJ Preller is going to try to really make a big swing for this guy. And honestly, this is one that I could very well see happening. I want to say don't get your hopes up, because even though these rumors are out there, it's kind of hard to stomach the Nationals to trade Juan Soto at the same time. Like, it's going to take a lot. It could easily take a lot more than what we're bringing up. I think that's just the starting price. If you're the Padres, I think you're going to be willing to go a lot more than that. But it is very interesting to look at, what it's going to end up costing. But I don't really have anything else on the Juan Soto stuff. Isaac, anything else you want to add on the Juan Soto situation here?
No, not really. I think there's another team up in Anaheim that should be willing to give up 1 or 2 of their best players, but I mean, we'll see how that trade market works out. Um, in terms of Juan Soto, no, I got nothing. The Padres are definitely going to be all in. These next 2 weeks are going to be a roller coaster, and I mean, up until today, it wasn't that exciting of a trade deadline. Maybe for the Padres it was, because it's like, you're starting to see some signs of this team not being able to compete for a World Series. Being able to make the playoffs, absolutely, but maybe not to the point that they'll be able to get to the World Series. Now a player like this gets on the market, and now you're seeing like teams competing for the World Series are going to want to go for this guy. Teams that are barely on the brink of competing for the playoffs or the World Series are going to want to go for this guy. So I think you will have a solid amount of competition from teams like the Mets, the Yankees. You can never leave out the Dodgers, but the Padres have it all, man. The Padres definitely have it all. I want Juan Soto in this lineup. I know probably every Padres fan does. It's going to come at the expense of the farm, which, AJ Preller spent a lot of time trying to build, and the Padres have always been one of the top farms in baseball. That will most definitely drop to probably a bottom 5 farm in baseball if this were to happen. Though I have confidence AJ would be able to build that back up in 2 or 3 years to at least a mid-tier farm. But yeah, man, let's just see what happens. The next 2 weeks are going to be a roller coaster. I don't know if I'm going to be able to take 2 weeks of Juan Soto trade rumors. That's going to be very tough, but we'll just see how it goes, man. I would also say don't bank on it. I would also say don't, get your hopes up also, like you said, Matt. But if you're not going to bank on a Juan Soto trade getting done, bank on AJ at least trying.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. One other thing I do want to mention is that also some of the picks in this draft are available for trade as well. So you could also see those getting moved as well. And we've talked about it before. We did a little pre-draft thing for the Padres. This is one of the most stacked draft classes of all time. Like the top end of the draft class. Not super deep, but in terms of that those first couple rounds, it is full of talent. So it could make a lot of sense if the Nationals do end up like wanting to get a couple picks or whatever picks are available, and you toss those into the deal, because those are also going to be top prospects as well. Final thing I will say, we are going to be doing a jersey giveaway, a City Connect jersey giveaway when we hit 2K subs. I think we're about a little less than 130 away from that. So if you guys are not subscribed, make sure to subscribe, and then we will announce it, a couple times before we actually do the giveaway. But we are going to be doing a giveaway once we hit 2K. So make sure to subscribe. We're going to be giving you guys all of the rumors that come out with the Padres. We will be going over stuff with that. And we also have a few other things kind of in the works. Got some more San Diego sports coverage that's going to be coming our way, not on this specific channel, but on another channel that we're going to be starting up as well with a bunch of other San Diego content creators. So we are very excited to get that to you guys. If you're interested in joining the Discord, I will leave the Discord in the comments as well. But thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully you guys subscribe. When we get to 2K, we will be giving that jersey away. We really want to get that jersey away. So in a few days, I'll go to the store, hopefully buy it. Probably going to do a Fernando one, but we'll see how it works out. But make sure to sub, and hopefully early August, we see Fernando Tatis back. We see Juan Soto in a jersey. That is what I want to see as a Padre fan. So hopefully it all works out. But thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you all very, very soon.